What's up, plant family? One of my favorite design things lately has just been putting single leaves of our Monstera into vases of water. They stay good forever. Now this will not create roots, but it looks beautiful in a vase. Put a little air plant in here, put it over here, and it looks awesome. So why am I bringing that up? Well, okay, if you're growing a Monstera, which many of us are, maybe you're wondering how to propagate it by taking cuttings from your plants. When I have too many leaves on my plants, but there's no nodes available, I do this. But when there are nodes available, well, let's see what we do. Come with me to my Monstera plant as we take a cutting, and I'll show you how to propagate it successfully. All right, first thing you need to have some sharp shears. I have these cool little red ones, very perfect for the job. Here's my beautiful Monstera growing gorgeously in this corner. Now, as I was doing some inspections yesterday, I found an area that I thought might be absolutely perfect to propagate. And I have had this branch just kind of propped up with this stake right here, but I'm going to remove this stake. So when we're thinking about propagating our Monsteras, we need to think about sections of our plants that maybe are getting a little bit gangly and you want to remove them, kind of clean up the look of the plant. If you like the wild look, don't propagate, just let it grow naturally. But so as we can see here, this is a nice stem that's coming out. It's well rooted and it has all of these nodes. So if we can come in close, come in here close, Samantha, and show them these lines right here. This line here, this line here, this line here. These are what we call nodes. And as you can see, nodes are where the roots will grow out. Can you see this root here growing out of this node and into the ground or into the soil? So when we are taking a cutting, the best thing to do is to cut in between one of these nodes. You want to make sure that you have at the very minimum one node that is a part of what you are actually removing from the plant. And then by cutting just above a pre-existing node, you're actually going to allow the plant is not just going to stay like this, you know, like a nub right here. It will start to grow again in the coming months. So this spot right here, I think in between these two nodes is a great location because I have this one node and this node and a third one up here that I can put in water and roots will form out of those existing nodes. So when we have our sharp shears, we locate just in between, if I can do this right, just like this. So locate just in between like this and you make a nice clean cut. The cleaner the cut, the better, okay? So a cutting like this size is beautiful, and I could just beautifully put it into a clear, we like to propagate in clear glass vases, but you see it's not really, you know, fitting super efficiently. Let me get here on the ground so I can use my hands a little bit better. Okay, so I have this nice stem with these various nodes. I've got 3 leaves coming out of it, but it's a little bit kind of like an awkward shape. So what you can do, what I'm going to do, I am actually going to remove one of these leaves and I'm going to add it to one of those vases that I just showed you. This is perfect. A cutting that is about this size with 2 leaves is a great amount. If you have too many leaves and not enough kind of roots coming out, it's going to be hard to transfer it to soil once it has actually created roots. Now I'm going to place this into this clear glass vase filled with water, and I'm going to ensure that those nodes are resting in the water. The nodes need to be in the water. You can see I have these nodes 1, 2, 3 in the water, and that is so important because that is where the roots are going to actually grow from. Now the reason that I like to use a clear glass vase is because it allows for light to cleanly penetrate. I can tell if the water is getting dirty, and it helps to decrease the possibility of fungus or molds growing. So now that you have your cutting in water just like this, what we're going to do is we want to put this in somewhere that is warm. The warmer the location, the faster these will root. Cuttings that are being propagated do not need to be in a full sun location. The key is warmth, not sunlight, while we are creating new roots. So something like this is perfect for maybe a kitchen that is a little bit darker, doesn't have good natural light. That's where I'm gonna place this and wait for roots to grow. So once the roots have grown, we will revisit our cutting and I'll show you guys how to safely and securely plant it into a new container so you can have a new Monstera deliciosa growing. All right, I'll be back here in about a month or so. All right, so finally the time has come. It's ready to plant up our propagation, but before I show you how to actually plant up that propagated Monstera, let me show you what's been going on with the plant. Check it out, you can see I cut it right there, and just like I told you, it has started to regrow. Just this little baby tiny leaf for now, but it's gonna keep growing and growing. So as a matter of fact, the propagation has been in the water for the last 2 months. It was ready a few weeks ago, but it looks so good in my kitchen that I just didn't want to plant it up yet. Let me show you how cool this has been looking for the last 2 months. So we have these cool floating shelves that we installed maybe 6 months ago, and we just have this propagation, this Monstera just up there in that corner, and it looks so amazing. I just haven't wanted to eliminate it from our kitchen decor, but you can see that the roots have started to grow. They've started to grow in that water just as you can see. So I think it's finally time. Let's go ahead and plant it up. Okay, so I'm here in my planting room, my greenhouse room, and let me show you the progress. It has been about 2 months exactly since I took the cutting and placed it in our vase of water. Now, during that time, it has created all of these new roots that are just starting to grow. This is a great sign. I could definitely have left it in there longer and it would be absolutely fine, but I think this is enough root material to plant it up and to feel safe that it's going to be able to absorb enough water to keep the leaves hydrated. If we remember, the way that a plant works is water enters the soil and then the water that's in the soil gets absorbed by those roots and the water transfers, or it travels up the roots through the stems and into the leaves. And so if you don't have enough actual roots that can transport water to the leaves, that is when a propagation will fail. All right, so you need to make sure that you have enough root material to hydrate the foliage. All right, and I think this is pretty good. You know, I could have even left it a little bit longer to get more root material, but Monsteras generally, they're not a super water hogging kind of plant from my experience, so I think that this will be good. Now, one thing that I have learned growing Monstera is that they do like room in the soil in order to they like to have, it's like a big jacket on. It's like they like to have their oversized coat on. So I'm going to give this cutting a 1 gallon pot. It kind of seems like a lot, but I think this 1 gallon pot should be the right amount of soil and root available space for this to be a successful propagation. So I have it filled with my soil mix. The soil mix I use for pretty much all of my houseplants. If you want the good recipe, check the link and you can find the recipe. It's like 5 ingredients, super easy. And in the description of that video, you can find links to every item that you might need to buy online, okay? So generally, when I am transferring a propagated cutting into soil, I like to water my soil first, all right? It's much easier to plant a propagated cutting in moistened soil first because the moistened soil is going to help that cutting stay upright rather than you're putting a propagated plant into dry soil, then watering it. It's much easier. So that's why I have this Tupperware underneath to catch any excess water. Just gonna make sure it's nice and moistened. Use your hands or some sort of spoon to just kind of mix that soil around, ensure that it is all nice and moist. You can see great texture. It's not sopping wet, just moist to the touch. Perfect. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna just kind of dig a little well, make a hole. I'm just using some sort of stake. Make a hole where we're gonna be putting that cutting, all right? pretty much just in the middle is where we want to go. Now we're going to plant it up. All right, so you got the cutting. Now we want to be gentle. You can see the roots are rather fine. They're not super thick yet, so we need to be quite gentle. Using our hands is the best method. So gently just sort of crest it in. Now you can see this node where the stems are, like basically the first stems are coming out of. I'm going to bury the soil just to around that node, all right? Plants 101, we will remember that you need to make sure that the roots are 100% covered. Any exposed roots, like I was just saying, the roots transport that water to the leaves. If the roots are exposed, the water will evaporate into the air rather than travel to the leaves. So keep them covered, all right? So you can see I don't have quite enough soil in there. So add some more. And give it some more water for that top layer of soil, just to get it nice and moist. And also by pre-moistening that soil beforehand, you know that the soil is going to be 100% moist, which means that those fresh roots are going to be surrounded by moistened soil. If they're surrounded by dry soil, then it's going to be unhappy. Those are going to dry out. Your plant will not have success, all right? So that's very, very important. Okay, now most of us will remember that monsteras are a climbing vine, so we need to give them something to climb up. You can see my moss pole video on how to kind of install a moss pole on a monstera that's nice and quite large already. But for the moment, I'm just gonna be using this dowel rod. It's just like, I don't know, maybe the size of a quarter. What is that? Maybe an inch, a little bit less than an inch in diameter. And it can be nice to install these into your container before you plant in your propagation. It's not always super feasible, but so for me, what I'm gonna do right now, I'm just kind of using my fingers to kind of just digging a hole in here to try to make sure that I'm not messing with any of those little roots that I just planted in here, all right? So once you kind of have like a nice little well dug in there, just kind of nestle this guy in, get the soil nice and compacted. Doesn't really look like it needs any support via any like twist ties, but if you have, I find that pipe cleaners are a great thing to use to keep our climbing vines like going upright. It's soft, it allows for growth to occur. It's not going to constrict the growth like some other, like, I don't know, some really intense rubber bands or something. So if you want to use these, you can use these. It's not really that necessary right now. Maybe I will. No. Okay, just for the heck of it. Just tie this guy up. A little bit of extra support. All right. And there we go. Just planted up our propagated monstera. This is a plant you want to give it like morning sunlight if you have the opportunity. Inside the home, really pretty much any sunny window will be great. It doesn't want to be in the darkest. It's not a snake plant, but it's also not a succulent. So somewhere in that kind of mid-range. If you remember, my monstera is kind of in a corner. It's not directly in front of a window, but it is near a couple bright locations. So those are kind of the right sunlight locations that monsteras need to thrive. And this plant is going to go right near its big monstera mama and creating a nice little happy family together. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a comment. If you have other questions, please leave a comment below. Share this video with friends, anyone else that is trying to get interested into plants. And definitely give it a subscribe of my channel if you've enjoyed watching all of my houseplant and outdoor plant videos. Thank you for joining me here on Plant Vibrations. I will catch you soon. Ciao.